Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus slice of Mind Cake
Mind Cake
with him,
Lee Crompton, and him,
Paul Beeson.
very tired little Beeson.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you, Mush?
I'm right. I've just come back from a run.
I know, you smug git. I can see you looking all smug.
I'm glad we haven't got smell-o-vision. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm good on you. Good on you for getting out. Is it a nice day where you are?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
Is it a nice day where you are?
It's bright, but it's chilly.
No, it's grey and chilly on the west coast of fair country.
Lovely stuff. But yeah, good on you. Good on you.
Yes, I'm in training for the Knutsford Park Run, which is only now 3 weeks away.
It's only 3 weeks to your birthday.
Only 3 weeks to my birthday, which means it's 4 weeks to your birthday.
Give or take, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
exciting stuff.
So I've managed to get to 4K non-stop.
Woo, woo.
So still a bit to go, but yes, I'm getting there.
Is a park run 5K?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good for you. Good
How
for
are you,
buddy.
sir?
I'm all right. Just super busy with shows and stuff. Now doing 2 shows a day in the evenings, but then also trying to, do life during the day as well. Organising some ruggy deliveries.
I was going to say, Jenny, I did feel sorry for the people of Scotland with dirty rugs, because presumably there's nowhere they can go at the minute. You know, one of those RSPCA adverts at Christmas, which is going to be old people with dirty rugs going, "Can you help Barbara? She's got a very mucky rug and Paul's too busy doing shows to help her." Sorry, that came out wrong, didn't it?
They're Barbara and her mucky rug.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
You've got to go. You've got to go to rehearsals.
No, rehearsals are done, mate. I've
Sorry.
got to go and entertain a paying audience.
Mate. The show?
Yeah.
Which show is it today?
We're doing both. So we're doing A War of Two Halves at 6, and we're doing Suite FA at 8:15.
Not a double header.
Yeah, and that's how it is every day. We just alternate which one goes first, but we're doing 2 a day. Apart from Saturday when we're doing 4.
Jeez, oh.
Yeah.
This bonus episode is a extract from the mammoth conversation that I had with Amy.
So that was a good 4 hours or something you were chatting, wasn't it?
It was over 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yes. So we obviously chatted to Amy about yoga. And then, just when I thought we were it was safe to go back in the water, she turned the tables on me and was asking me questions.
What?
I know. Which was unusual, because in a year of doing this, that's not really happened, does it? We haven't had people sort of...
Think she's angling for a Mind Cake gig?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've almost said, Paul's really busy. I'm just going to fill in if you're overly... I mean, I don't want to elbow you out, but she's quite jolly as well. Do you know what I mean? For a mental health podcast, she's jolly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's upbeat. She's positive.
She's not miserable like you and me.
She's not. Well, I was thinking more you, but
Okay. I see how it goes.
Listen, I don't know, but all I'm saying, if that was an audition, then audition tape. You actors love your audition tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think she's got the gig.
Oh, she smashed it.
Yeah,
absolutely smashed it.
So let's get into. This is basically me putting you on your notice period.
So I'll go and look for other podcasts to get involved with while we listen to Amy's bonus episode.
Let's do it.
If you've got a little bit more time, do you have a little more time, or are you pushed for time?
Yes, I'm just going to say yes anyway because I'm loving it. No, but yes.
Okay. I would love to ask you a little bit about you, please. So, as far as I understand, you were told first that you had 6 months to live. You had this particular form of cancer. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. First off, how did you absorb that in the moment?
Well, it was interesting listening to you and your conversation with your surgeon and the fact that he was so direct. First of all, I wasn't initially told a timescale. In the very first meeting in Larbert Hospital, I was just told, and I could tell from the body language, it was shit. Someone from
Right.
Glasgow will be in touch, and literally the next day go into Glasgow and see Mr. Hilmy, and Mr. Hilmy tells you you've got 6 months. Sorry, 6 months with a positive outcome. And I remember, and he told me very directly, and I've actually had part of my stuff I've been doing with Dr. Jan was that it is, you've got average life expectancy is 4 months. You're going to have to come in for another operation on Monday. And it doesn't matter. We'll do a COVID test, but it doesn't really matter whether you're positive or not, because if you are positive, we're just going to have to take more precautions. I'll get my team to sort of gown up more because you have to come in on Monday. And at that point, my wife Gemma said, "Is that because so there's a chance that we could save him, from want of a better expression?" And I remember he swiveled his chair, so he was like knee to knee with her, and looked her very directly, and then went, "No, you've misunderstood what I've said. He's 6 months would be a positive outcome. He's coming in. He's coming in on Monday because it will." The one half of my thyroid that's left in, because initially they didn't know it was cancer, it was just to remove a lump, and then they've taken that lump out and gone, oh shit, so I've got to go in and have the rest of it removed. And yeah, that was the rest of it, because it was so aggressive. If I'm sinking in my chair, it's because my chair's decided to you ever get that sinking feeling?
It perfectly aligned with what you were saying. It was like,
You got to laugh, haven't you? So I was going in. Good timing, chair. Good timing. It's doing it again. Right, I'm just going to sit on a cushion. I'll just stand up.
seat.
I'll just stand up. No. So yeah, I had to go in on the Monday because it was that aggressive.
Okay.
That I don't know why am I laughing. It's that aggressive that basically it would balloon up, would impact on my breathing, swallowing, and just make the end when I'm in palliative care less awful. And it took a while. I don't know. So apologies to regular listeners who know this, because I've told the story before, but I haven't told this bit. It took a while, and I have told Mr. Hilmy this, that probably 6 months afterwards, that when I saw Mr. Hilmy, I would physically gag, because my memory of him was I just found him terrifying. He's actually a really nice guy, but in that moment, he's the guy who told me you've got 6 months at best, and was very, very direct. And that's the only way I guess you can do that job. But my brain then associated him with almost like the Grim Reaper, and it was like the Dementors had come in. It was just fear, just struck by fear whenever I saw him.
That seems really reasonable, actually, and it's understandable. And do you know, it's interesting that it made you gag here, which is where your thyroid was. Well, there's a link.
Yeah.
Between this whole area.
But I suppose in the moment that you're told, just numb. I think it's like one of those things. I suppose it's like anything that's a sort of out of body experience. I would imagine it's similar to someone being awarded a gold medal, or being awarded a BAFTA or whatever. Are you really in that moment? Because you kind of, I felt detached from it. It wasn't, I wasn't. It's only afterwards, when you reflect on it, that you have the overwhelming sense of doom and grief and anger and anything else. But in that moment, I mean, I'll tell you something that it was like an involuntary thing that I did. And every so often I catch myself doing it. I just, for the first, I don't know, I would just sit like that, just shaking my head. That's not very good for a podcast. Shaking my hair. But yeah, just shaking my head, almost in just this state of kind of numb disbelief, where you're like, this is again what you were saying about your brain not being able to differentiate between dream and reality. That yeah, I was gonna. This was just an awful dream, and I was gonna wake up, and then you kind of have to check yourself and go, oh no, this is actually happening. So yes, it was a complex mix of emotions, and yeah, hence I still see Dr. Jan.
It's interesting though, again, and thank you so much for sharing, 'cause it's so normal for us, because when we feel flooded with emotion, we go numb, because that's a flood. I mean, how is anyone supposed to deal with all of that emotion at once, and all of that news and the consequences? So it's very normal to go into a sort of dissociative state. It's our brain protecting. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot all in one go, and it takes people different times to process, different sort of length of times to process things. But I'm wondering, after that stage when you were flooded and were in this dissociative state, when was the next big shift for you? Were you, in terms of, I know you said that you, I know it's a big question.
No, it's that, because there's one immediate thing that springs to mind, which again I've mentioned before, is that it was about, I don't know, probably maybe even over a couple of weeks afterwards, 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, I saw the oncologist, and he said, you know what, I think we've been a bit hasty with this whole 6 months thing. I was like, okay, what do we think? I think with a bit of luck, you might get 12 months out of this. And I remember coming out of there, like literally punching the air, going, fuck it. Because I mean, the other thing was I think I mentioned earlier, my daughter was 8 months old when I was diagnosed. So I didn't know whether I was going to get to see, her first birthday or Izzy's fourth birthday. And so the fact that you've got now 12 months, double the amount of time that you thought you had literally a fortnight ago, I was like euphoric. And then it was literally
beautiful.
But it was a couple of days later when I've gone, hang on a minute. Why am I punching the air when somebody's told me, I get it, twice as long as I thought I had, but someone's basically still going to told you you're going to be dead in a year. And I'm like Rocky at the top of the steps.
Because it's that theory when, if you give somebody a whole loaf of bread and then you take away half of it, they feel robbed. They feel like, oh, I had less than I was given before, even though it's a gift. Whereas if you just give somebody half a loaf of bread that they didn't have in the first place, they'd be like, wow, thank you so much, what a treat.
Yeah.
So everything is relative to our expectation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's really beautiful. And of course you'd have the roller coaster. It's understandable to have the roller coaster and not feel forever chuffed to bits that you've got 12 full months.
12 months, yeah.
But I think that's a really beautiful nuance of humanness in that moment, to be so grateful for 6 months. Imagine if we lived life that grateful for every day we were alive, for every day we get to like hug our nieces, nephews, kids, mums, dads, spouses.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it does. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, so it had an idea for a script, and it's something we touched on earlier. And I think it plays into that whole, that how grateful you are in that moment. That I had an idea for a script called No Way Back, which was based on, I was involved in a project called The Impact, which was basically 50 short films about the end of the world, where a meteor hits and everyone dies. And it was 50 short films made into a feature film. So I filmed a 2-minute short based on a friend of mine's script that made it into the final film. And I showed it to people out of context. And it's a woman sitting on a bench talking to actually, I don't know if you know it, Three Lock Drive up near Callender. Beautiful scenery. And there's a woman sat on a bench watching her kids on a phone realizing that the meteor's coming. Obviously, you don't know that as a watcher, other than if you've got the context of the film. And then she's singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" with her two daughters, and the phone signal cuts off because obviously the meteor's about to hit, and she starts to cry, and she finishes. She looks up, head up, looks across the lock, and finishes the nursery rhyme on her own. Cut, right?
Oh,
Honestly, it's
you're trying to make me cry.
some of my best work. No, it's a very good script, and it's just me, just one person, camera, one actress, one actor,
Oh,
and I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link. It's only a minute and a half long,
I'd
and
love to.
but showing people out of context, they've gone, "Oh, that's really good. What happens next?" And I've gone, "Well, nothing happens next because everyone dies.
The meteor hits.
The meteor hits and everybody dies."
Hmm.
And then having gone through it, and that was pre-cancer. Then having
Mm,
gone through the cancer, I've gone, well, what if actually, as an anti-apocalyptic movie, which I don't think has been, I think is a fairly unique USP, what if all the things that are in the feature film kind of happen? So you have president announces, meteor's gonna hit, there's raping, pillaging, looting, murder, home truths. I mean, one of the short films, the parents are putting sleeping tablets in the like cake for their kids because they want them to go out peacefully. There's some funnier ones, but there's, even if it's a home truth, well, I never fucking liked you. I've been having an affair, whatever it might be. All these home truths and whatever come out, and Pandora's box is opened, and there's, I think there's, you only have to look at the petrol crisis when you've got people fighting on the forecourts because there's one pump that's working when when there's a fuel shortage or whatever. I think we're, a fag paper away from sort of chaos anyway. And you have all that, and then guess what? The meteor misses. And a bit like I was saying to you earlier, we are then expected, or me with my cancer, I'm expected to go back to work on a Monday morning, or we as society are all expected to go back on one Monday morning and forget that there's been all this. It wouldn't happen. You would have absolute chaos. And then
mhm.
how do you then get back from that Pandora's box, someone shutting the lid and going, "Oh, isn't it great? Isn't it great? The meteor didn't hit."
How do you go back from Pandora's box? Do you go back? Does Pandora's box stay open with you each day?
I think there's a little glimmer of it. Yeah, every now and again, if I've got an appointment or coming up, yeah, it's always kind of there, because if you have any other ailment,
Mhm.
is that a lump under my armpit? Why is this suddenly, what's this spotty rash I've got? Everything is a brain tumor or terminal something or other. So I think it's trying to keep yourself right, because nothing's quite, the world isn't, we all know this as an actress. I would say everything is kind of on a Dutch angle. Everything is kind of slightly out of kilter, where the world was I know the world's not a safe place, but the world was a relatively safe place because you didn't think about your own mortality or the mortality of your children or where your loved ones or whatever. Whereas now you have been forced to look at it. I mean, I did I think I was going to be doing powers of attorney? So for when I couldn't make my own decisions, when I'm in
Mhm.
palliative care, and I know my wife Gemma found that very difficult. Particularly difficult was obviously the whole process generally, but the powers of attorney particularly touched a nerve with her, in that, yeah, when he's not compos mentis, you're going to have to make the decisions as to what happened, what we do with him. And
That's such a huge responsibility.
huge.
She's she's a mother of your kids, and being
Mm.
your wife must have been huge for her.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get her to do an episode on the podcast, because I think, again, is seeing that from the other person's perspective, because I've mentioned this before, but we went through IVF to have the kids, and
Mhm.
I found that a very galvanizing thing, because you've both got the same goal and you've both got the same aim. Whereas I
Mhm.
actually found having cancer terminal cancer with such a short timescale quite divisive, because I've got a list, as I do, I've got a list of things. I'm a great list writer anyway, a list of all these things that I need to do, and I need to tick them off. I need to write powers of attorney, a will, my own funeral arrangements, presents and for the Christmas presents and whatever for the kids, and fix the boiler, all these things that I need to do, prioritize in the next weeks and however many months I've got left. Whereas her priorities were mainly were maybe more, how the hell am I going to pay the mortgage in 6 months' time? Where are we going to live? How am I going to raise 2 kids without a dad? And so she's kind of focused on we're both just forward thinking, but I'm kind of very much focused on the next 4 to 6 months because that's all I've got. Whereas she's thinking, ahead for the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of.
Well, that's interesting. You're both locked in different times, because then you're locked within the first 4 months and she's way ahead. So you're both looking at focused on completely different situations, scenarios, and times.
And I found that really frustrating at the time, going, well, yeah, but I'm gonna die. Why? And in retrospect, I've come around to the thought of like, well, yeah, my bit was the easy bit really, because I was going to die. I was going to have to deal with the aftermath. In a lot of ways, that's easier. Having that knowledge for 4 to 6 months and then dying is actually far easier than having that knowledge, even though it's not you, having that knowledge for 4 to 6 months and then having to deal with the aftermath of, I've got 2 kids and a house, and how am I gonna, I don't mean without me. I'm very much replaceable. I just mean in terms of
harsh.
Well, no, that is a whole new thing. I invented a new, because I think my wife wasn't even, was she 40 at the time? I don't think she was. So I invented this whole new character, Brian. He's an absolute asshole. So he was gonna come in here and probably never done a day's work in his life, and probably, because again, what do I remember from when I was 4, or let alone 8 months old? I don't remember 3. I don't remember anything. So I was going to be some old bastard in a photograph that my children wouldn't even. Who's that? He's your dad. I don't know. I thought my dad was Brian. No, Brian isn't your fucking dad. He's just some bloke who's turned up here and wearing my slippers in my house. I fucking hate Brian. So, but that's where your mind goes. I'd invented this because, again, she's 40, right? So she's probably going to meet somebody else at some point, and my kids are going to call him Dad. Arsehole.
And so you only had to deal with this.
Yeah, that's easy.
That's it. This and blooming asshole Brian.
Yeah.
What I would say is, one of the things I think is beautiful that you've obviously thought of both sides, and really, obviously, you've deeply considered your wife's feelings.
Retrospectively thought of both sides. I think at the time I was not in a good place with it. But yes, retrospectively,
understandably so. Mm-hmm. Somebody recently had said to me she didn't feel like she was allowed to cry or complain about life, because she said, but these horrific things have not happened to me. And I just, I asked her a few questions. I was like, what has been your challenges? And she explained some challenges, and I was like, well, you can't compare your challenge to somebody else's challenge. Everybody's experience is relative to your own life and your own experience. And so if we believe that ours is comparable, then we can often stop ourselves from feeling the emotions that we need to feel, or minimize what we experienced. And I think there's a difference between minimizing and then having perspective and progressive and processing something. So I would put that there's an and there. It's very, very difficult for your wife, and it's also very, very difficult for you. And I think that's an and that they can coexist without without
without a league
necessarily
table of it was worse for you.
exactly
Yeah.
without claiming that things were easier for you, because that's only in comparison to somebody else's experience, you know. Yeah, I just think when we take comparison out, you're able to make space for both of your difficulties.
There were people that genuinely stepped up, and if you'd have asked me beforehand, if you're going to be diagnosed with terminal cancer, who do you think are the people that would come through for you? And yeah, one in particular, Colin, who is the husband of my wife's best friend. Kind of know him, but I wouldn't say I was pals with him. I wouldn't go out for a drink with him, whatever. Yeah, we would go out for a, because that's the other thing. We're in fucking lockdown. You got to remember, all of this is happening whilst COVID is happening.
Whilst the world is going to shit.
Yeah, and people are going, oh, you know what you want to do? You want to go to, because everyone's got an opinion on it. You want to go to Disney, take the kids to Disney, or somebody else going, you know, the How Not to Die cookbook guy. Yeah, I mean, are they telling you to do chemo? No, I'm not doing chemo. It's radioactive iodine treatment. Well, you don't want to do that because that's basically poisoning your body. What you need to do is go to Mexico and basically ignore science and medical advice. Go to Mexico because they've got this plant where you drink the juice from the leaves, and there's this clinic in Mexico, and you go there and that'll fucking sort you out. Like, first of all, that sounds like horseshit. And second of all, even if I did take your advice, I can't go to Mexico because I don't know if you've noticed, we're in a global pandemic and no one can go anywhere. I can't go to Disneyland. I can't go to Mexico and drink fucking whatever it is. It was, yeah.
That must have been so frustrating. I feel
frustrating.
frustrated for you. And I'm really sorry for all that you experienced, in that it's when you get one letdown after another and one frustration after another, it really compounds when you're dealing with your own health and trying to deal with that. And then I imagine it sounds quite lonely.
It was very lonely, yeah, a very dark place. But like you say, I think out of that has come. I wrote sort of dark comedy anyway, but a lot of the stuff that's you know, and I find that very cathartic. Is you know, you write some of the scripts, you can't write that. I'm like, that's not my grim imagination. That kind of happened.
When you're writing the dark stuff, is that an outpouring of you having wanted to be in the dark stuff, to talk about the dark stuff?
Yeah. I think I've mentioned to you before when we were speaking, and when I was talking to Alistair Campbell, is that I think, you know, I've always struggled with my mental health, and obviously this was, I would say, much darker because you were going to die, right? But it was almost having the cancer that then validated me to be able to talk about my mental health, because you kind of got an excuse then. Well, of course you've got mental health. I can understand, the layman could understand why you had mental health issues, because you were told you were going to die. So of course you have. And here we are, how many years later, doing a podcast about mental health. Would I be doing a podcast about mental health if I hadn't been diagnosed with cancer? Probably not.
Yeah, you know, it's what we transform our experiences into, because that's the thing. None of us deserve the crap that happens, and it's not like, I think there's a difference between, I think there's some people who would choose to believe that everything happens for a reason, or you know, some people believe that things are predestined. I don't know about you, and I'm curious about how you perceive it. What works best for me, and I think that's what's important about everything you're talking about, everything woo-woo, everything like out of the ordinary, everything that goes beyond our understanding, and science, and you know, and all of that is science too, but and the sort of logic. For me, it comes down to taking what works for you. Just taking what works for you. like whether it's, you know, even a clairvoyant or whatever it is, you just take what works. We all get the choice, and we all get the choice to take on board what we want to take forward with us, is essentially it. And I feel we all handle things differently. And it's more that I feel like when crap has happened, it's not that I don't believe that focusing on the predetermination of it is helpful to me. What makes me feel really empowered is if something happens, I go, oh, okay, this has happened. Acceptance, fact, this has happened. And then I can go through a whole process, of course. How do I want to be with this thing? What are the possibilities here that I can do with this experience, or I can do with this energy? That's really what it comes down to for me, is that's what's empowering. Like, okay, do I wish that I didn't have to go through a back operation? Yes, of course I do. But there's no point in channeling energy to that wish, because I was going nowhere, and it's certainly not serving me. It's not doing anything for me. Why would I want to do anything that doesn't do anything for me at the end of the day? Coming back to your point, this is my body. I've been gifted with it. I'm going to take care of her. So with my backup and everything, that's what I feel so excited discovering yoga and being a yoga teacher and teaching people with all different body types and body abilities makes me feel really excited, because I think, oh, and only recently I've been like, oh, it's great that I've had those experiences mean that I understand what it feels like to have limitation in your body. I understand what it feels like to feel like you're starting from square one. I understand what it feels like to feel like you have no ability to be flexible whatsoever, and you don't even know where to start, and maybe this isn't the place for you. So it's taking your experience, choosing what you do with it. And one example is that what I really love is Warrior 2 position. So this one where your front leg is bent and your arms are side to side and your back leg is straight. You're looking to your front arm. And in yogic philosophy, your back arm represents the past. Your front arm represents the future. And this is the present. You're standing in the present. Okay. So you look back and you make sure your past is in alignment. So this arm needs to be in alignment with your shoulders. So it's not too up, not too down. And you make sure your fingers are, active and straight. And the way that I look at that is every time I do that position, I go, okay, my past is mine. It is my past. Everything that's happened to me is mine. I own it. How do I want it to be? How do I want to look at it? I want it to be, there we go. My past is there. I can see it and it is mine. And I can choose to do with it what I will. And right now it's going to be straight. So all the energy can flow off of it, and I can drop what I don't want. And then I put my other arm to the future, and you look beyond into your future, and I focus on what I do want and what I want to invite into my life. And you realize you don't have to focus on your past. It's behind you. And you stay in the present in the meantime, noticing how you feel, breathing, going, okay, well, I'm here. I can choose what I want from the back, from the past, and what I want towards the future. And it all comes down to choice. And that's why I find, coming back to yoga as well, that's why I find it so beautiful. Every day there's something that I come to, and that I realize that comes back to everything that we're talking about, of how to be with life, how to be with the things that have happened to us, and what do we want going forward. And, in going forward for you, what would you have wanted? What would you have wanted people to do to be there for you? What would have shown up for you? What would showing up for you have looked like? What did it look like when people showed up for you in the way that you wanted them?
I think I'm going to mention Colin again. So Colin is the first person that springs to mind in terms of showing up, because I think at that point, although we're in lockdown, I think you were allowed to go for walks as long as you stayed allegedly 2 meters apart. And it was obviously autumn, winter time, and the weather didn't matter. Colin would just call me and go, right, we're going for a walk today. And we go out and walk around wherever, really. And sometimes he had done his research into, because I mean, that was one of the things they said, do not this is the medical professionals, do not Google anaplastic thyroid cancer, because you won't find. I mean, that's the remarkable thing, really, and I can't, struggle to get my head around, is that if you do Google it, which I do Google it now, you don't see anybody like me. There's no stories of anybody coming out of it alive. Most of the people, as I said, are dead within a year. There are a handful of people lasting 3 to 5 years, but they're on cutting edge drugs to keep them alive. They're not cured. They're just extending their life. I'm yet to find anyone who's had anaplastic thyroid cancer and lived to tell the tale, so to speak. But he's a very academic guy, and he would talk very matter of fact and very plainly. He'd done his research and and this, that, and the other, and would say things like, there's only 70 cases of this in the year in the UK in a year. And actually, I'm not saying that they've got it wrong, and he was one of the first people to say it, but 70 isn't a very big pool of people to work from. If you were going to do an academic study, or, you see these people who liked Head and Shoulders, they generally use more than 70 people in their poll. He said, even if you had 10 years of data, you'd only been dealing with 700 people, which still isn't really very big. And medicine has obviously moved on in those 10 years. So you can't compare people who were battling cancer 10 years ago. Think the landscape is very different. And so I wouldn't say he was giving me, he definitely wasn't giving me false hope. He was being very matter of fact about it, but just from a analytical point of view, going, well, actually, look, everyone's body's different, and 70 people a year isn't very many. So yes, there is data there, and the data is very damning. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen to you.
So what was it about that? What was it about that interaction, about the friendship that Colin showed up with? What was it about it?
I think the fact that he took the lead. So he's going, we're going for a walk. Not, are you free? He knows I'm free because I'm not doing anything. I was dying of cancer. But he's not asking the question. He's just saying, we're going for a walk, 3 o'clock, meet you there. And we go, doesn't matter about the weather. And just the fact that he would say this stuff and sometimes just actually listen. Because I mean, that's the other thing I would say, that I'm hoping that my youngest daughter isn't traumatized by, because they do say that, children can, even though they can't walk and talk. She was 8 months old at the time. But I mean, she was probably my biggest sounding board, because I would take the pram out when I couldn't sleep at like whatever time in the morning. Or I'd go out early morning when, it was still dark, and I'd push the pram, and I'd have conversations. It was a one-way conversation, obviously. But trying to get her to sleep or whatever in the pram, some of the conversations we had, which I've never had with anybody else, and will probably never ever have again. But yeah, talking to Erin, and that's why I feel that, I say obviously I've got a connection. They're my kids, but particularly with Erin, because she was unwittingly the one that was kind of there. But going back to Colin, again, listening, I suppose that's the thing with Erin. She was, again, she didn't have a choice in the matter, but she was, it was just a way. And again, I suppose, is that with the podcast, that actually is just quite cathartic, just to actually talk about these things, rather than and show that vulnerability, something we've spoken about before, show that vulnerability and explore coping mechanisms and strategies, rather than bottling it up and being strong and manning up. And amount of people who said, again, the person who wrote the film, apocalyptic film, we had this thing. She was, again, someone who stepped forward. Hello, Tracy, if you're listening. But we had this thing where the amount of people who would comment, "You've got this. Stay strong. You've got this." And that used to piss me right off, because, what does that mean? Right? It doesn't really mean anything. It's like you can't think of anything else to say. So you've got this, and say, stay strong, battle it, fight it. All these words that we use, which is nonsense. Because are we saying that my dad therefore wasn't strong enough or didn't fight hard enough or whatever because he
Mm.
died of cancer? No,
Mm.
I'm not suggesting that for a minute. So it's not a case of I'm stronger or I'm, more. I think positivity does play a part in it, but you just do what you need to do in that moment. So to suggest that someone is stronger than somebody else because they've, in inverted commas, beaten cancer or survived,
Hmm.
I think is nonsense. Sorry, again, I've gone off a
I
tangent. You
I
asked me
agree
what.
with you. No, that was a beautifully answered question. I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that somebody else taking the lead is taking a load off of you. It's taking a bit of responsibility off of you while you've got this huge weight.
Yes.
And that also with your youngest, with Erin, you didn't know how many conversations you were going to get to have with her. So that
Mm.
was your opportunity to
Mhm.
converse with her
Mhm.
and, to share what was the most true for you at the time. So it's kind of beautiful that was precious time that you had and that you could, you felt that those were your vulnerable moments, being heard and being seen
Yes.
by Colin.
Mhm.
And just somebody else taking a little bit of initiative to learn a little bit about what you're going through without relying on you telling them everything about it as well.
Yeah, because that's
That
the other
sounds
thing. You're
like,
regurgitating it umpteen
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Um,
And being able
and
to talk about it with you, like that sounds like it sounds very much like the Simon Sinek, idea of sitting in the mud with somebody. Sounds like your
yes.
your pal was going, "Hey, I see you in the mud. We're gonna go to the mud today. We're gonna,
Mhm.
do whatever you want. We can sit there. You can tell me about it. Let's talk about it. How does the mud feel? I've learned a bit about mud,
Yeah.
about the mud you're going through. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to walk around it? And giving you the option."
It was interesting as well that we did have a laugh. We had a lot of laughs on the way as well because he could you asked the question like how are you going to spend your time and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, I'm writing this, which I still haven't finished now. You're 4 years on, but like a dad. What do you call it? Like a dad diary. So it would be all about where I grew up, what my first job was, just facts about me. And I remember Colin going, "Oh, you're not one of those wankers, are you? That's going to do. Why? Surely there's a better way to spend. If you had a finite amount of time, which we all have fundamentally, if you've had a finite amount of time left on the planet, why would you spend it right?" And I'm like, well, again, it went back to Brian. I was worried that they weren't going to recognize me and wouldn't know me. And so it was my way of going, this is your dad. You might not
Yeah,
remember him,
yeah.
but this is about him. So you can hopefully learn firsthand from him what he's liked, what he disliked, what his personality was like, and blah blah blah. So it was really important. But I remember Colin going, "No, no, no. If I was diagnosed, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be whatever it was, out rock climbing or doing adventure sports or whatever it is, snowboarding that he would do." And again, what works for some people doesn't work for other people. But something that also sticks with me is that I cannot look at certain photographs. So
Okay.
I know because I know how I felt in that moment.
Mm.
Gemma, bless her, was like the fucking paparazzi because obviously she wanted to take pictures with me and the kids so that they'd have things to look back on when they maybe couldn't remember them. So I was always getting snapped, and I'm there with the smile with my arm around the kids because the kids don't know what's going on, and I had to paint the smile on. And I look at the pictures now, and yeah, I know how I was feeling in that moment. And there's one particular one. So, sorry. I just
Go ahead.
saying it out loud, I feel like how ridiculous this is. What the fuck were you doing? So, having been diagnosed in the
Yeah.
September, then had the operation in the October, or end of September, beginning of October, the second operation, then having radioactive iodine treatment in the November, which like depletes your. I mean, I was fucked, right? I was fucked. I decided that I was going to do because Maggie's were amazing. I was going to do a charity run for Maggie's. So having been through my body, been through that in October, November, December,
Wow.
I ran 50 miles for Maggie's in January.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and I have this picture, and some of it I would take out the pram and run with Erin. And I have this picture which still just makes me, and I'm looking down at the pram and she's looking up at me, and she's at that stage, what? Well, she'd have been 1
Oh,
because it's January. And yeah, I don't think I've got it here, actually. I haven't. But yeah, I know I know exactly what photo that is. And I'll tell you what, if this episode goes out, I'll post it online, the picture, and it's just, I don't know, I just love, it's just a photo of pure love. And
oh,
just beautiful. It's beautiful.
I can see the way your face lights up with it, and I can see it in your eyes and everything. Your whole energy. I can see the love actually bursting from you. I feel like you need that next to your computer.
I do. Actually. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at on my notice board now, and yeah, it's surprisingly not here, but I should definitely get it because
Yeah, it lights you up.
it does. It does. And
And it's really important to have those moments. And also, like, thank you for sharing about the comments and things, you know, that you've got this and the strength thing. There's been a lot of history of cancer in my family, and you know, various different ages. And I didn't know my granddad on my dad's side. He died when my dad was just born. And so there's just been quite a lot. And I do notice the rhetoric, you know, that people use with cancer. And I agree with you in that I think we've got to be very careful not to play accidentally the blame game, and you know, and make it like if people don't make it that they weren't strong enough. Just like you said, it's not about strength. It's a whole host of things that can affect. And I have a theory. I have a theory that, and I wonder what you think, is that at the end of the day, if you're not sure what somebody needs, ask them.
Ask them.
And I mean, what I do now is when somebody seems to be going through something and they want to talk about it, I'll ask them, hey, do you want to talk about it? If you do, I'm here. We can sit down right now. We can go for coffee. I'm all ears. So they know that it's a safe space and that they have permission. I'm not in a rush. And then from there, generally, I've come to asking, like, okay, I hear you. That sounds really difficult, you know, and affirming what they're feeling is just, I feel really important, acknowledging and seeing somebody where they're at and asking them just to tell you more. What else do you feel? And then I've come to asking people, would you like a thought? Would you like to just be heard right now? Or would you like some positivity and encouragement? What would you prefer? Would you like some solutions? What do you want at this point? How can I help?
Yeah.
And, you know, most of the time people, like, I find that people most of the time know what they want. And they'll be like, you know, yeah, I you know, give me a thought, you know, and it's being gentle and aware and very careful with your thoughts. And you know, I heard, I think it was Glennon Doyle on her podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. She was saying with her kid, when she was struggling to tie her shoelaces, she was just so distraught. She was like, I put the shoes on the wrong feet. And it's terrible. I can't tie the laces. And she was like, that sounds so hard. Are you ready for a solution? And she was like, no. She's like, okay. Do you just want to be heard right now? And she went, yeah. Okay. And then 2 seconds later, she got her shoes on the right feet, and then she was off. And
yeah.
I just have this theory, and especially through coaching, I've noticed that really what people really desire and what there's not enough of in life is being seen and heard. Hello.
Hello,
I'm Amy.
Is Izzy. She's
Hello, Izzy.
She is my eldest. How was school?
Good.
Was it good? Right, okay. You managed to get all the, oh, hang on, here comes trouble. Oh, right.
Trouble.
Hello, trouble. Hello. How are you?
What are you
Is it
doing?
Erin?
Oh, you got your telescope, right? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
very
We're
nice.
just talking about you.
Yeah,
This is
we
Amy.
were.
Say hello,
Talking about
Amy.
how you love to go outside, how you love your walks.
Yeah. What have you got? There's that Paw Patrol. Oh, right, sorry.
Paw Patrol, Paw Patrol, meet you on the double.
Who's your favourite?
Paw Patrol.
Chase.
Chase.
Chase is a good one.
Because Chase and Marsh are my favorite pets, and they're also my favorite color.
Oh.
Good reasons.
Mhm.
Very good reasons. Chase is very, very cool.
Yeah.
I also like Rubble on the Double.
Yeah. Daddy likes Rub on the Double too.
Oh, do I? Right, okay.
Yeah, you did. You told me.
Did I tell you that? Right, you're gonna go. Ow! What's my finger? Who's got my finger? You rotter. Right, we put this. You've missed this one. What about this one? Ow! Right, go and play, and I'll be with you in a minute.
Oh, I love that.
This is
Perfect ending.
you got an insight to my to my world there.
Love it.
What were we saying? Yes, we should wrap it up, I think.
Oh, no, the last thing I was saying was I believe that I believe that people, generally people are wise about themselves. And if we ask what people want, I feel like that's a great way forward. Often we're scared of asking because maybe we don't want the answer. Maybe we don't feel comfortable with whatever they want. But I really think it's important to ask people what they want. For me, I find it very empowering because if I've said, yes, I want a thought, then I've given permission for that thought.
Yeah.
So whatever comes, I'm going to take it better. If I say I'd like advice, then it's me giving permission.
Yeah.
But if somebody just gives you feedback and gives you advice without you asking for it, like you shouldn't do this, you should do that, you should go to Mexico, then it doesn't feel great. It just doesn't feel great.
Didn't feel great.
So it's my theory that asking people is one of the best things you can do. I wonder what you thought of that.
No, absolutely. Like I say, because there was a lot of people had a lot of opinion. I'm taking that as a microcosm, the cancer, but generally in life, people have a lot of opinions and a lot of theories and what have you, and particularly with cancer, of what you should be doing or what you should be eating or where you should be going and what have you. And it's interesting that I recently had Aaron Ballack on the podcast, and he's a psychologist that specializes in social media, and he was saying about, again, advice, in that, I don't know whether I've got it here in my notes actually, because I would have written it down when I've spoken to him before. Yeah. So what I actually said to him, I saw one of your posts talking about people giving mental health advice on social media. 91% don't have a professional qualification, and more than 80% of that mental health advice is misleading. 14% of it potentially damaging. So people spouting off about who don't really have the qualifications. Advice is good in certain situations, but if you ask people what they need rather than assuming what they need, whether that's advice and listening, sometimes you don't want people to listen. I want someone to tell me what to do. I want Colin to tell me we're going to meet in the park at 10 o'clock, and that's what we're going to do. So no, I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
With advice, I just generally feel like we should in general not go off spouting, giving people our feedback or advice, because how they've not asked for that.
No.
And it assumes that you know better, and that already doesn't start off on the right foot. No. Because it assumes a level of you haven't thought about this, or you're going down a wrong pathway. And I always remember I was lucky enough to go to a talk with John Travolta, and the last thing I'd say on the advice part and the opinions part is I won these tickets, and it was a talk with John Travolta in London, and he was being interviewed, and the interviewer said something like, well, listen, this movie, like Grease, went really, really well. What about this other movie you did? That was a bummer. And he went, you're entitled to your opinion. He went, I mean, but it really was. So it really was an awful film.
Mhm.
And he took him through and said, well, look, I had a contract and these films were great. And then the contract was for this many films, whatever it was. Let's say it was 4 films. I did these 3 films and then this one wasn't so great. And it was part of a contract. And that contract changed my life. And I had the best experiences of my life. And he said, he came back and he was really insistent and said, it really was a rubbish film, though. And he said, the thing is, everybody has an opinion.
Mhm.
I could walk down the street with a pair of shoes and say to every single person, what do you think of my shoes? What do you think of my shoes? Every single person is going to have an opinion. And so I only ask a very select few people for their opinion.
Mhm.
And those are the people whose opinions I truly, truly value.
Mhm.
And I'm careful not to absorb or take in or ask for an opinion of anybody else. And he repeated himself and said, oh, but you have to admit it was a bad film, though. And he just looked at him and leaned in a little bit and said, with all due respect, you're just another opinion.
Mhm.
And I loved that. I felt that was so powerful in terms of drawing boundaries around yourself to be like, you know what? I'm not asking for this opinion, or maybe I am, but it's up to you.
Mhm. No, absolutely. And again, I guess it comes back to that: you do you, and I'll do me. You might have that opinion, and again, I suppose it's come back to energy. I could waste energy going, well, hang on a minute, why do you think it was a bad movie? I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
There was a bit, and I was in it with the da da da, and you can fight that and
Yeah.
use your energy to fight that negatively, or you can go, do you know what? That's your opinion. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
100%. I find the more that I focus on my health, my mental health, the more I commit to my health and commit to doing yoga and practicing meditation, the more capable I am of doing that.
Mhm.
Because I think that I used to have so much reactivity, and they'd be like, but that's not it. That wasn't the thing, and I'd want to share information or convince, or I'd feel like, oh, but you didn't understand me. And now I'm more and more of the feeling that, well, okay, I'm all right with being misunderstood. If somebody's
Mhm.
going to choose to take me in this way or choose to misunderstand, then unless we're in this together and we're wanting a 2-way honest sharing, then I'm learning to be okay with it.
And I think the thing that I've picked up as well, which I've found interesting, because I'm not saying that we're similar in that way, but you strike me as a person who is very motivated and very driven and very energetic, very positive, and so not necessarily someone who you would think, because I think I'm putting this on me. I find it very difficult to sit still and to meditate and to have that time and to just if we go away for a spa retreat or whatever, I'm just like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to read that book, I'm going to watch that film, I'm going to well, why don't you just sit and chill the fuck out? No, I can't do that. So I think it's one thing doing what you do. I guess it's another thing that you find it that powerful that although you have all this energy,
Mm-hmm.
you are able to just sit with yourself and be calm in that moment. I think what you've done in October is brilliant, and I am definitely going to give it a go. I'm going to dip my toe back into the yoga waters.
Yes, Lee.
And we are going to do another episode, because I didn't even ask you. I'm going to wrap this up now because it has been hours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lee.
You take care, Amy. It's been an absolute pleasure. So whilst Paul is still with us, we haven't had confirmation from Amy whether she's taking up the post yet. Have you anything to add?
No.
Okay. Well, no, as it's a bonus episode,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do any housekeeping, do we?
No, I don't think so. Everybody who's with us at this point will know where to find everything.
Plus, it's a Thursday, so no one will listen anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll save all the housekeeping and top quality banter for the next episode.
If you're still with us.
Yeah, well, depends. If I get my notice period
well,
before the next one comes out, I might not be here.
Okay, well, we'll see. Let's keep the audience on tenterhooks as whether you're here for the next episode next Tuesday, which will be Jonathan Agnew, the voice
Ooh.
of cricket.
Aggers.
Aggers.
Exciting stuff. Well, hopefully I'm still around to be part of that one. We'll see. We'll see how we go, eh?
Yeah, well, don't count your chickens. Okay,
All right.
bye for now.
Bye, mate.
Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it fine.